Good morning, everybody. It's Thursday morning and welcome to Penn Vicarage. Lovely to see you. Hope you're well and cheerful. Hope this finds you well, my friends. And thank you for joining us for our Bible reflection for today, continuing our adventure through Exodus. And today we're in Exodus chapter 20, which I have to say contains some of the best known words in the whole Bible. After perhaps the Lord's Prayer and the Lord's my shepherd, today we have the famous 10 Commandments. So Moses has led his people out of slavery. They've been in the desert for about 3 months. They've encountered, and now they have this huge encounter with God on Mount Sinai. So here we have God giving Moses the 10 Commandments, and here goes. Then God spoke all these words. I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself an idol, whether in the form of anything in heaven above, or in the earth beneath, nor that is in the water under the earth. You shall not bow down to them, nor worship them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, punishing the children for the iniquity of the parents to the third and fourth generation of those who reject me, but showing steadfast love to the 1,000th generation of those who love me and keep my commandments. You shall not make wrongful use of the name of the Lord your God, for the Lord will not acquit anyone who misuses his name. Remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. 6 days you shall labour and do all your work, but the 7th day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. You shall not do any work, you, your son or your daughter, your male or female slave, your livestock, or the alien resident in your towns. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea and all that is in them, but rested the 7th day. Therefore the Lord blessed the 7th day and consecrated it. Honour your father and your mother, so that your days may be long in the land that the Lord your God is giving you. You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbour. You shall not covet your neighbour's house. You shall not covet your neighbour's wife, or male or female slave, or ox or donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbour. When all the people witnessed the thunder and lightning, the sound of the trumpet, and the mountain shaking, they were afraid, and trembled and stood at a distance, and said to Moses, You speak to us, and we will listen. But do not let God speak to us, or we will die. Moses said to the people, Do not be afraid, for God has come only to test you, and to put the fear of him upon you, so that you do not sin. And the people stood at a distance, while Moses drew near to the thick darkness where God was. The Lord said to Moses, Thus you shall say to the Israelites, You have seen for yourselves that I spoke with you from heaven. You shall not make gods of silver alongside me. You shall not make for yourself gods of gold. You need make for me only an altar of earth, and sacrifice on it your burnt offerings and your offerings of well-being, your sheep and your oxen in every place I cause to be in my name to be remembered. I will come to you and bless you. But if you make him for me an altar of stone, and do not build it of hewn stones, for if you use a chisel upon it, you shall profane it. You shall not go up by steps to my altar, so that your nakedness may not be exposed on it. And this is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Okay, so we have the famous 10 Commandments here. The fancy word for it is the Decalogue, the famous 10 Commandments. And I suppose I want to say firstly kind of where they fit into the scheme of things, into the biblical perspective. Jesus was later asked, what is the greatest commandment? And Jesus gave us 2 commandments. Love the Lord your God with your heart, soul, mind and strength, and love your neighbour as yourself. And he goes on to say, on these 2 commandments hang all the law and the prophets. So in Jesus' mind, in the Christian mind, then those 2 commandments, they're love the Lord your God and love your neighbour as yourself. They are the 2 big commandments. They're the ones on which everything else hangs. So if you've got to take two commandments for Desert Island, there's the ones to take. Next behind those is the 10 Commandments. And immediately shortly after the 10 Commandments, in the rest of the book of Exodus, Leviticus, and some numbers as well, you have 601 further laws kind of unpacking all this. So the pecking order, if you like, is the 2 Commandments first, then the 10, and then the 601 after that. That kind of gives a perspective of where the 10 Commandments fit into the big scheme of things. So, what have we got? Well, God starts in Exodus chapter 20. He starts off by saying, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me or besides me. basically, I'm the only God. And in verse 1, actually, it's kind of really important. This kind of puts it square and says, God says, I am the one who rescued you. I helped you at your hour of need. Other nations, if you like, and other people make gods in their own image. They create them out of silver and gold. But what he's saying is those gods can't help you. But I brought you out of the land of Egypt. I really can help you. So what he's saying is, I am the Lord your God. You shall have no other gods besides me. Okay. So worship a God who can help you. Don't waste your time worshiping a God that can't. So God is absolutely abundantly clear here. You shall have no other gods beside me. And we are Puritans, we are a monotheistic God. We believe in one God, the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. We have one God, and that's a God that can actually help us. That's the first thing. Then he goes on to talk about, don't create any idols and that sort of stuff. And then you get a sentence in verse, verse 5, which kind of is a bit difficult. He says, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, punishing the children for the iniquity of parents to the third and fourth generation of those who reject me. And that's quite problematic because it makes God sound mean and jealous and everything else. Except to say that you need to read the whole sentence. Firstly, in a sense, people do suffer for the sins of their parents. Parents who bring their children up badly, and children get caught in the crossfire of difficult ills, of bad parenting, and so on. It happens on occasion. So actually, in reality, it is true to say that people do suffer for the sins of their parents. Of course they do. Absolutely right. That has to be acknowledged. But of course, what you need to recognise is he says, to the third and fourth generation of hate, but unto thousands that keep my commandments. And what you're supposed to see here is, there's a bit of back pay, but compared with thousands, it's but spit in the ocean. So you need to read the whole of the second commandment here. Okay, it sounds difficult because it says, I'm a jealous God, but actually, in the third and fourth generation of those who hate me, and that sounds awful, but actually, you need to compare it with the thousands of people who actually get blessed. So you need to remember that as well. So that's the second commandment, and then the third and fourth commandment also are about keeping the Lord's proper use of the Lord's name and proper use of the Sabbath day. And the Sabbath day is really about remembering who made the world and remembering whose power in which we work. Are we working in our own strength, or are we working in God's strength? And the importance of Sabbath is partly because we all need a rest, partly because God needed a rest, so I'm sure we do, but also to remind us each time who it is who made the world, and especially if we're Christian ministers, we're Christians in whose power we work, in whose strength we live. It's in God we trust, and so on. So the first four commandments, if you like, are really about loving God with your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Then commandments 5 to 10, they're more about loving your neighbour as yourself. It's really about being faithful to each other. It's about honouring each other and making sure that we are faithful to it. So we don't kill each other, we don't nick things, we don't lie about each other. And these are kind of basic fundamentals of society. With the murder one, it's important to recognise that it does not say, you shall not kill. Because later on, the Bible makes it clear that there are legitimate times for killing people, and in war, for example, and when it's strictly speaking necessary, but you can't kill for selfish purposes, is what it's kind of really saying here. So he goes on the things that you go through to kind of keep society good, to make sure that we are faithful to each other. So, when people start committing adultery, then in a sense, it breaks down relationships, it breaks down trust. So in the first 4 commandments, you've got about being faithful to God. And then the second 6 commandments, you've got about being faithful to each other, to make sure that we know that society can work properly as well. The last one I think is interesting, the 10th commandment about coveting your neighbour's house and so on. I think it's worth saying, I think in some ways the whole of Western capitalism is based on coveting each other, which I think is quite interesting. Wanting what somebody else has got. You could argue that our whole capitalist society is based on that. That's just a reflection for today. But I do think in some ways it's important, the 10th commandment, because unlike the others, which are quite specific, it's the only one that kind of deals with the heart. There was a prime minister years ago who talked about dealing with crime and the causes of crime. And I think actually what it's quite important that, if you're not coveting your neighbour's wife, you're much less likely to commit adultery with her. If you're not coveting someone else's stuff, you're much less likely to nick it. If you're not coveting each other, you're much less likely to murder them, all that kind of thing as well. So the 10th commandment is a good one because it unlike the others, which are quite specific about things that you must or must not do, The 10th commandment really, in a sense, deals with the heart. So if you don't covet, then you're much less likely to do these things. It's dealing with, as I say, the causes of crime as well as the crime itself. And I think that's really kind of important too. So you've got these 10 commandments here. You've got 4 really, which are dealing with loving God and being faithful to God. And you've got 5 to 10, which are about being faithful and proper working of society. So we don't commit adultery, we don't nick things, we don't kill each other, we don't murder each other, and so on. And we don't lie about each other. The last one being really good because it kind of, get the last one right, and in a sense, all the other ones we'll deal with as well. But and afterwards, of course, you've got the people have clearly met God, and they've met God big style. I'd like to finish though with a little story about somebody who became a Christian in prison, and this person had been a kleptomaniac, and they were concerned how they'd manage when they were released. How they managed to not nick stuff when they came out. And they went to church one day, and they found to the horror on the wall, as you used to get in lots of traditional churches, the 10 Commandments were on the wall. And he kind of said to God, look, what am I going to do with this 10 Commandments? Just this one about you shall not steal. I think it's the 8th commandment, isn't it? And God sort of said to him, look again. And instead of saying, thou shalt not steal, it became a statement. You won't steal. And actually, with Jesus in our hearts, with the Holy Spirit working in our hearts and lives, God deals with us from the inside out. So they become less commandments and more things that we kind of do because that's the heart that God's given us. So anyway, today's 10 Commandments. I hope you found that helpful. Do read them again at your leisure. God bless you. Thank you so much for watching. Do share this message with your friends. Have a lovely day. Enjoy.